and click on Generate. It looks like a camel from Ice Age cartoon. What is this? Really, I didn't want to see that. Fresh off the microwave, today I'm going to share with you all 5 new features in Photoshop version 27.3 or January 2026. Keep in mind I say microwave because many of these features were already there in the beta version of Photoshop and they're just microwaved in the main stable version. So without any further ado, let's get started. Starting with my favorite, the grain adjustment layer. Earlier, you had to go to Camera Raw to apply the grain or create a lot of gray layers and apply grain, change the blend mode. You don't have to do any of that. All you have to do is to click on the adjustment layer icon and then choose grain. That's all there is to it. And here's the best part. So in this example, I slightly blurred the background. Here is the original photo. You would notice that as you zoom in, something just seems off. And to bring everything together, also in compositing, to bring the compositing together, a little bit of grain goes a long way. Make sure you're clicking on the symbol of the grain adjustment layer to see the properties or any adjustment layer for that matter, and then simply increase the amount. Everything is in a slider and can be adjusted very easily. Here's the amount, here's the size of the grain, you have the roughness of the grain, how rough you want it to be. So I'm going to leave it at about that amount and it just brings everything together so darn well. And it applies just as an adjustment layer to everything that's under it. So you don't really have to go to Camera Raw to add that grain. But Camera Raw does have an advantage. In this case, no matter how much you increase the size of the grain or the amount, the image smoothness stays the same. The blurriness of the image stays the same. For a moment, I'm just going to turn off the grain adjustment layer. Keep in mind, the amount is 78 and the size is 70. Even if I turn it off and on, the image sharpness stays the same. However, if I were to create a stamp visible layer at the top by selecting the topmost layer, except the grain, and press Ctrl, Alt, Shift, and E, and then go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter, you would notice something different. If we scroll down to the Effects section, inside of that, if we increase the grain, see what happens. I'm going to increase it to this amount, and as soon as you increase the size, you would notice the image also blurs, giving it a nice original effect. In this case, I wouldn't go that high, possibly this much, and this much size. This adds beautiful texture with some original blurriness just to bring everything together even better. So in my opinion, if you do want to keep everything sharp and still want to add some grain, this grain adjustment layer works brilliantly. Otherwise, Camera Raw still has some kind of an edge. You can also add some grain to design elements. I do that from time to time to make it look premium. Here in this thumbnail that I was designing, I added these 3 logos, and a little bit of grain on that would look amazing. For it, click on the adjustment layer icon and again choose grain. Now since these are design elements, I don't want to blur them anyway, so this becomes a perfect adjustment. Just a little bit of grain, see, goes a long way. Increase the size slightly, maybe a little more, and amount this much is fine. Looks so darn better, but this grain is applied throughout the image. We only want to limit it just to these icons. So how do we do that? Clipping mask. You can simply click on this button right there. This limits this adjustment layer just to the layer underneath it. Moving on to the next adjustment, clarity and dehaze also were in Camera Raw, now in the main version of Photoshop as an adjustment layer, making it so darn simple. Click on the adjustment layer icon and then choose clarity and dehaze. And this is great if you want to just add some punch to your photo. So I'm just going to increase dehaze to remove the mistiness and make it pop right there. This much is fine, and a bit of clarity. See that punch? It's just incredible. Obviously, you can use masks to make it even better. One of the strengths of Photoshop. So let us pick the gradient tool. Make sure you select the mask of the adjustment layer, and then let's make a gradient from white to black. Only apply it in the top areas, not in the bottom areas. This should work, and there you go. Fantastic adjustment. Now you can even get creative and combine it with multiple of these adjustment layers. So first, click on the adjustment layer icon and choose clarity and dehaze. And this time I want top clarity on her face. Let's increase it. This looks amazing, but we only want it on the face. So select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I to invert the mask, take the brush, take a soft round white brush and just paint over the face like so, just in these areas. That's it. Now, if you want to add some haze around this artist, let's add one more clarity and dehaze by clicking on the adjustment layer icon and then choose clarity and dehaze. And this time we will use the opposite mask. So hold the Alt key or the Option key and click on this mask and drag it and drop it right there. Yes, we want to replace it. Also, we wanted the inverse of this mask. So with the mask selected, press Ctrl or Command I to invert it. Now to get to the properties of the adjustment, click on the symbol, and this time you can just decrease the dehaze. Look at what it does. This looks amazing. There you go. Look at that. So I'm going to keep it at that, and maybe you can just paint in some additional areas. So with the mask selected, take the brush, white as the foreground color. I'm just going to paint a little bit of that area just to bring back some haze around. Just these little adjustments go a long way. Moving on to the next feature, we have a brand new generative fill and expand model. It's Adobe's own model, and it's way better because it's higher resolution. The earlier one was 1K. This can produce results up to 2K. So right here, I already have a selection. If you're not seeing the contextual taskbar, simply right-click outside the canvas and click on Show Contextual Taskbar. Click on Generative Fill and let's type in Sitting Camel. Why not? Click on the Models menu, and from here, choose the new model, Firefly, Fill and Expand, and click on Generate. Let's see what it does. So from what I know, it does animals, humans, and details overall better, and definitely has a higher resolution. And as you can see, the results are pretty good. First one, second one, third one. Let's go with the second one. Now here's the great part. Even if you zoom in, you would notice that this is pretty high res and just works. Now I don't know how accurate it is here. Sometimes it can do some AI garbage, but let's just compare it with the older models. If we were to choose, let's say, Firefly Image 3, which was the previous model, and click on Generate again, let's compare the results. You definitely can clearly see a difference in quality. What the heck is happening? It looks like a camel from Ice Age cartoon. Here's the second one. What the heck? What is happening right there? What is this? Really, I didn't want to see that. So these camels, or whatever they are, they're definitely worse than the set of these. Night and day difference. Now the great news is this model also translates to generative expand. So let's say you wanted to expand this photo to a square aspect ratio. Press C for the crop tool, and from the top I'm going to choose square and just expand it like so. From the fill section, you want to choose generative expand, or you can also click on generative expand in the contextual taskbar. From the models menu, you want to make sure you choose Firefly Fill and Expand. Pick the latest model and then click on Generate. There you go. Now, one of the great things I like about this is that you have 3 options, which is pretty amazing. And even if you zoom in to about, let's say, 100%, you cannot tell which area is real and from what area are we generating stuff. So here's the first result, the second one, and the third one. And in all of that, it's just hard to tell. So let's zoom in gradually by pressing Ctrl or Command plus. You cannot tell at this point. Zoom in one more time. You cannot tell at 33%. You cannot even tell at 50% or even 100%. It's hard. But if you zoom in more, then you can probably tell that this is generated and this is real. But even then, this is just so darn good. Maybe you have to zoom in to about 400% to tell that this is original and this is generated. Now let's compare it with the older model, which was Firefly Image 3. Hit OK for now and click on Generate. Let's see what that does. Okay, this is not bad. First, second, third. There are some weird things here and there, but apart from that, it's fine. But as soon as you start to zoom in to, let's say, even 50%, you can clearly tell that this is generated and this is real. Let's zoom into about 100%, and at this point, yes, it's a very, very clear difference. And if you compare it with the new version, see how much sharper that is. Definitely a big leap. Now with this new generative fill and expand, you have access to another new thing, and that is reference images. And you can do a bunch of things with it. For example, here, let's make a selection, a rough selection like so. And I want to place something here without destroying the original background. Here's what we do. Click on Generative Fill, and here is a reference image option. Let's click on that, click on Choose Image, and pick whatever you want to place. So spray bottle, hit open. It's a simple photo of a spray bottle. I'm just going to open that. And now you have 2 options. First, if you choose whole image, it will consider the entire image, including the background. If you choose the object, it will cut out that spray bottle or whatever object there is in your photo. Now here are 2 important options. Do you want to swap this area with this, or do you want to place this area on top of what is already there? Let's pick place so that the current background is not destroyed or not changed, and then click on Generate. Now you would notice that when you choose a reference image, you cannot type in a prompt because you're placing that exact thing right over there in that particular area. And there you go. It perfectly places that exact spray bottle without destroying the background. Here's the before, here's the after. The leaves are at the same place. The pot is at the same place. The table is not destroyed. This is just placed. It created the shadow. It created the reflection. Everything is just on point. First one, second, third, they're very, very similar, just different placements slightly. But apart from that, so darn accurate. And it did match the color and the lighting so good. If you have a look at the original image, the lighting was entirely different. It matched that to match the scene. Now you can also swap existing objects with it. For example, in this case, I've made a selection around her necklace. I want a different necklace. In other words, I want this necklace removed and replaced by that new necklace. Here's what we do. Click on Generative Fill again, and this time we're going to use a picture of this necklace. Let's see how it does it. Let's click on the reference image button, choose image. We're going to choose beads, click on open, let it automatically remove the white background. If it's clicked on object, it will do that for you. Now, instead of placing it on top of this necklace, we want to swap this necklace with this one. Let's see what it does. Click on generate. Sometimes it can surprise you, sometimes not. At least you have 3 options and all of them look pretty darn good. First option, second option, third option. And I have to say, they're all pretty good. Now, sometimes there can be some weird things here and there. You can always regenerate those areas. But apart from that, this is very impressive. And as for the final update, we have an update for the remove tool. In other words, it works better than before. How much better? Let's see. So let's pick the remove tool. At the top, you want to make sure auto is checked, which lets Photoshop decide whether it wants to use AI or not. Keep in mind with the remove tool at the moment, it doesn't consume any credits. This is a very difficult removal. Let's say I want to remove this person. Let's loop around it. Now this is a very difficult remove considering that there is a net, there is a background, there's just so much happening. And as you can see, even in the tips, removing may use generative AI but does not use generative credits, which is a good thing for now. I hope Adobe keeps it that way. Boom, gone. And this is such a good result. Here's the before, here's the after. It's crazy good. I should have created it in a different layer, but oh my gosh. This is brilliant. Even if you zoom in, it's hard to tell which area was original and which area was removed. This is so beautifully done. Even if you have a look at the edges of the person right next to it, it just works. Now let's compare it with the older model, which was also there in Photoshop 2025. So let's select the remove tool. At the top, auto is fine. And again, we are going to loop around the same person. This also creates a great result, but the difference starts to show as soon as you zoom in. See these smudges here? You can clearly tell that these areas were generated right there, some smudges right here. This creates a weird edge there, overall there. But again, it's a great result compared to how it used to be before with the clone stamp tool or even the content aware fill. This is impossible. Now compare it with the newer model. There are no smudges at all. Maybe a little bit there. But apart from that, this is so good. The edges are so good, so much better. It's not perfect yet, but you can clearly see the improvement with this one. Now, just for future reference, please do it in a brand new layer. Don't do the mistake I did. Either create a new layer by clicking on this button or click on create new layer at the top. That way, every time you apply the remove tool on anything, it will just create a new layer for it. For example, I'm just going to fix this particular area. See, it created a new layer for you, and that layer only has that replaced area. Please do it that way. So what do you think of these updates? And what's your favorite feature? And what is your dream feature that you dream Photoshop had? Let's talk about it in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to give us a like, and also don't forget to subscribe, and not just subscribe. Ring the bell so that you, my friend, don't miss any other future tips, tricks, or tutorials. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next one. Till then, stay tuned and make sure that you keep creating.